Hey folks, Steve here with another Deadly Woods video for you today. We are going to be looking at turn one um, in this video at the very least, but we're also going to talk a little bit about strategy and maybe some projection on how the campaign's going to go. I realize that more folks will watch turn one than they will watch, say, turn 12 or the end or even the middle part of the game. So I think it's good to use this time to talk about what I think will happen in some areas of concern. And you folks watching can leave your comments down below and let me know what you're thinking, or maybe you have more experience with the game and you want to impart some knowledge. I know there's some other folks doing playthrough videos of this game elsewhere, so I feel like I fear doubling up on stuff that folks are already looking at. Um, but that means other folks are playing it and have thoughts of their own too that they may want to share. So I welcome all of that. Um, so I have my camera stand collapsed a little bit so I could put the camera stand on the table on the plexi here so that we could take a look at some of the points on the map with a little bit more scrutiny than we otherwise would with sort of the pulled back view looking at the big picture. And I want to kind of talk through, how the game is going to end up modeling some of the historical things that occurred and kind of where the Germans are likely to get gummed up a little bit in the works. So, looking first in the north, I just want to show that there are a number of victory point areas along the north edge of the map that would be valuable and worthwhile to take if we were able to do that. So we have, I'm going to probably mispronounce this, Eupen or Eupen. I'm not sure. Please tell me in the comment section down below. I can look it up too, I suppose. But in the meantime, it's a nearby area, but there's a lot in between the Germans and this location. There's always Liege or Liège way out here. There are two victory point hexes way out here, and technically some of these hexes, this hex in particular, is actually beyond the Meuse River and is within the British zone. So this is an area where we could get an achievable victory by getting 9 steps across the river there. Now we'll point out that because it is 9 steps, if we had 3 full-strength armor mechanized units crossing the river, that would qualify because each unit that doesn't have any step losses is a 3-step unit. So think through that. Three units of 3 steps, that would be enough. Now, granted, everything in between there's a lot, right? There is Elsenborn here that will be a significant area of operations. Historically, it was that the Americans managed to kind of hold up the Germans in this area a bit. The Germans were able to get to Bullingen, and we've got the fuel marker here as a reminder whether Piper can get here. He will get some supply benefits. There's also Malmedy over here. And what I want to call some attention to is the road network here. So units can certainly advance without being on a road, but for supply purposes, they will eventually need to be getting back to a road network. And because the road network helps movement, especially reinforcements, get to the front line, there is a concern over making sure we have control of the road network. So in the north sector here, we obviously have a concern about Monschau, which is sort of a cluster of roads converging there. If we were to try to take sort of a southern outflanking of that area, we do need to clear Elsenborn. We would want to be heading into Malmedy, which is another road network node. And then, from those 2 axes of advance, we can entertain the idea of going north up here or going north and then maybe heading west towards Liege. The other important thing we have to watch out for is that there are reinforcement hexes for the Allies along this northern border. So we have G, H, 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 J, which will enable certain units across the life of the game to reinforce in those locations representing Allied forces that are north of the game position. And they could come back down south here, and we'll have potentially some reinforcements in these areas. If I look at the reinforcement schedule, it looks like uh, some of these may not come in for the first few turns. We will have a few that will come in an H in the early phase of the game. So even if we manage to achieve some great breakthrough and do better at taking Elsenborn and pushing west, there will be some reinforcements that are going to come through here no matter what. So it's definitely a tough call. We do not want to get gummed up in the works. Now, a lot of the German armor, as historically was the case, are allocated up here and are going to be trying to push through this northern sector. So it's sort of like this is where the Germans have a lot of strength, but it's so too true that the Allies have a fair bit of strength here at the beginning position of the game. So they're going to have to, what we're either going to get a historical scenario cropping up here, or maybe if the die rolls get goofy, we'll see a greater breakthrough. But it will be tougher going, tougher German units, but tougher going in this general area to advance west from here. So we may have some limitations because of the army group separation. So units north of the yellow squiggle, yellow border along these hexes kind of have to stay up here for a while. We are going to have to focus that armor in that direction. And it could be that we have armor units that we're just not seeing the most benefit from because they just can't be surging west through this line. That could be what happens. A little bit further south, we have what would be the 5th Panzer Army area. So the northern one is the 6th, the central one is the 5th. We do have a decent number of units here. They're really incentivized to go for Saint-Vith. So thank you, folks in the comments, for helping me pronounce this correctly, Saint-Vith. That's the correct way to say it. There's definitely some benefit to capturing that and doing so within the first few turns. So there's definitely going to be some incentive to kind of push through here, take these units out, get across the bridge, and get to that area, and also potentially be knocking these units up here out of supply. And I believe these are the 106th Division units, which if they are out of supply, I think it's on turn 2, then they will potentially surrender. So that does drive, it is a bit, I don't want to say scripted, but there's some incentive to take certain actions here in the first early phases to capture this town, which does act as an important road hub, and get rid of these guys easily. That will then kind of open up the rest of the center sector here to be heading down the rail lines, or not rail lines, the road lines, and getting towards here in Bastogne. Same story is going to be, Axis units coming across here where there's not immediately allies being disruptive, to push through and try to get to Bastogne. And we could see a siege. Whether or not that happens in our game, we'll see. But you can see there are a lot of road paths that lead to Bastogne, and as historically was, like, that's a very important juncture to determine how far west are we going to get. Because if you look in aggregate at the way the roads work in the game and how they connect to one another, each of these hubs is really important. If you want to go west of Bastogne, you either need to have progressed down this line from Saint-Vith down to this town, and that gives you a sort of alternate way around Bastogne to head west towards Marche, or Marche, however you want to pronounce that. You would have to go either north out this way, or south down this road line headed west. If you're looking to capture, the pertinent victory point hexes, you're going to need to find some way around it. Now, to go, I'm starting to run out of table to hold my camera up, so I'm just going to have to hold it a certain way. If you wanted to get southwest, right, if you don't have Bastogne and you're the Germans, then you're trying to go up around here, then down south through here, and all of that. Or you found some other southern path So Bastogne is very important. It is this central location that controls the traffic through the center part of the map, really. That if the Germans are able to take it, then they're going to have a much easier time projecting units and sending reinforcements through this area to further west if the Germans are that lucky to have taken those areas. And if they manage to command that central position of the game, and if they, let's say we don't have a siege of Bastogne at all, then you could easily see 5 victory point areas taken for a victory, right? You would have Saint-Vith, this town, Bastogne, Marche, and Neufchâteau down here. That's 5. That's what you would need to win, but you've taken a very broad set of objectives. But if you have control of the roads, that's going to be probably a lot easier for you to achieve. Now, down south, you have the 7th Army sector, and there are already some destroyed bridges, so that's going to slow down the Germans a little bit, and they're going to have to fight through this territory to attempt to get down to Luxembourg City. And I think there's just going to be some challenges with that. There's not as many units available for that drive, and there's going to be a fair number, I believe, of reinforcements coming in from these areas because the reinforcement hex is down here at E, D, C, and B, and A. There's, I think, looking at the reinforcement chart, I think there's a fair number of reinforcements that are going to come in there. And this represents some of the reinforcements that I think it was Patton brought up from the south. And the Germans are going to have to deal with that. So it's not like the 7th Army, Panzer Army, is going to have a lot of flexibility in what they do down here. They're going to meet resistance. So I think the game will be won. I expect the game will be won on the center axis and what the Germans can do. Can they take Bastogne without without it being a prolonged siege event? And can the Germans do something up here to get on a timetable where they can sort of command these northern roads and have a little bit more flexibility in heading out this way, even to get some victory points? One critical thing, I believe this is how it works. I'll have to double check the rules. If the Germans can take one of the reinforcement hexes up here, and I believe they have to leave a unit behind. I have to double check that. That forces reinforcements that would go there to another reinforcement hex further away. And so if you manage to do well enough, you've got sort of the edge of the world problem. Once you reach the edge of the map, what happens? But if you're able to at least, the game just deals with saying, hey, if you've got a command of the roads up here and what that is representing, and you've got units there holding them, that's going to force the Allies to sort of reposition units elsewhere to come around. And that would be advantageous for the Germans if they can achieve it. Now, I suspect it's going to be hard to do that. And putting units in those spaces means they're not elsewhere doing stuff. And they are, potentially going to leave other units that are operating out this way of threat of being overwhelmed otherwise. So there's certainly some balance factors we'll have to consider here as we execute the game as the Germans and figure out what to do. The other thing that I want to point out is if your goal is to get across the Meuse, just getting there is going to be tough. There's so much space that has to be covered to get out this direction. The other thing that's going to really matter, I think, is bridge management. So the Germans can repair bridges, but not very fast. It is hard for them to do that. But the Allies, kind of on a whim, can usually destroy bridges. So they're going to go across a bridge, and they're going to elect to destroy it when they get across to the other side. And so for some areas, maybe not a huge deal, but especially around this river line, there's a number of different bridges that by destroying them will really slow down the Germans getting across there. So the opportunity to even get to some of these areas out here is going to be predicated on the bridge situation, and that's going to slow down the Germans as well. So they're going to have to deal with that across the board of trying to repair these bridges or find the choke points where they can get a bridge repaired to give them an opportunity to move forward. So the Allies are definitely going to be looking at, as they have to retreat or as they have to move west, waiting for reinforcements, potentially to destroy some bridges to slow down the Germans in the first half of the game. They will need to work through that. And I realize now I've just knocked some units around from their starter position. I'm going to have to fix that. Dang it. So yeah, just some stuff I'm trying to think through. And of course, there's all these turn one special rules we'll need to keep in mind, and the opening moves have to be structured in a certain order. So we'll talk through that all here in a minute. But that's just some general strategy talk I wanted to cover. There are historical elements here that influence these opening turns, but if we, as the Germans, manage to get lucky with die rolls in different situations, we may be able to surmount some of those early challenges, and we may see the game break open a lot more than maybe the historical event was. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so let me take a quick section break here, and then we'll start looking at the opening actions for turn one. Okay, before we get too far into the turn, and I'm sorry for putting yet another segue, segment into this video that is not pure gameplay. I wanted to show a couple of things. Now, I'm using good old-fashioned bingo chits for this. Really, if you don't own some, I really recommend that you get some. I think you can get, a bag of red and blue bingo chips for, I mean, it's dollars, I think. Very, very cheap. You can either go to a craft store, or Amazon has them. I got blue and red chits, and they work really great for any variety of purposes when playing a war game. And if you've watched enough of my videos, you've seen me use them before to help call attention to certain things. I decided for the moment to use them to show, to help show the special turn stuff for turn one. A variety of units on the board have special rules attached to them in the first turn, second turn, into the third turn. And what I've decided to do here is to show very specifically things that definitely have a turn one special rule impact, have a red bingo chit on either top of the unit or on top of the location, depending on what the effect actually is. And then in blue are are either areas or units that have a special rule associated with them after turn one, but obviously things that we would do in turn one would affect them in turn two or beyond. So I'll work myself backwards a little bit to explain it. So sans vif is important because if the Germans are in control of it by turn three, I believe, then they will get some conditional reinforcements, but they must control it. If they don't control it, they lose those reinforcements. So that really means that between turns one and two, I want to have tried to have taken it. So it's important for this turn and the next turn that we try to take sans vif. The units here are members of the 106th Division, U.S. 106th Division, which checks for supply in the cleanup phase of turn two and may surrender if they are out of supply. So the three units of that division are here, here, and here. And just to make sure, yeah, he is 106th. So these three units here could be easily eliminated by being out of supply. And of course, you check supply for U.S. units at the time you need to check it. So there's no issue. Basically, if the Germans could just get Zocs around these guys before the end of turn two, before the end of the activation phases of turn two, then those units will be removed. So that's certainly something they're going to try to achieve as best they can. And then the rest of these on the board are, again, really for turn one. So we'll talk through them very, very quickly. First things first, the 150th German Armor Brigade, Panzer Brigade here. This unit is a singular unit. There has some special rules where basically it can traverse enemy Zocs a little bit. Basically, they can choose a certain type of infiltration movement, we'll call it. So just want to make sure we don't forget that he can do that on turn one. So he has a red bingo chit marker on it. Basically, the way I'm looking at it is, if I'm going to take some action with a unit, with a chit, I should definitely make sure I know what unit that is and the special rules attached to it. We have the Piper unit here. So he is very specifically the Piper unit. So he wants to get into Bullingen, however you want to pronounce that, by turn 2, so that we get the fuel dump counter, and he's considered in supply. I guess we don't necessarily have to do that if we're not going to create a situation where he would be out of supply, but just something to keep in mind. Also, he adds a +1 to any combats he's involved in for the turn. So we want to keep that in mind if we can make use of that +1. It's really the only die roll modifier in the whole game. Then we will want to keep that in mind. So he is a special unit. What else? Well, we have, let's see, Allied artillery may not support the 313th or the 314th regiments of the 99th Division. So when we look at the units, it's these two right here, 313 and 314. They cannot get artillery support. So a special rule there that they need to worry about. Whenever you read the rules, just to be clear, when they say some number, th regiment or whatever of a parent unit, the of the division or unit or what have you will be on the left side of a counter, and then the more specific designation for the unit will be on the right side of the NATO symbol. So just in case you're following along on your own, that's how you want to make sure of that. So Allied artillery may not support these guys on turn 1, so that'll be a benefit to the Germans for sure. And then something important to keep in mind is that units of the 2nd and 99th Divisions may not be moved with the first reaction 3 marker. So there are, as part of the opening turn, there's a reaction 3 marker where the Allied player can reaction move 3 Allied units. These units are not allowed to benefit from that, and I just realized I'm missing one. I need to add to the board for this purpose. There we go. A little bit off camera. There we go. So the 2nd and 99th Divisions may not be moved with the first reaction 3 marker. So that includes these units we just talked about, as well as these units and the unit that is stationed in Elsenborn right now. So those units all, this whole section of the Allied line basically cannot be moved with the first reaction 3 markers. They have less ability to respond to the German surprise attack offensive here for the Battle of the Bulge. So there's that. The U.S. 5th Corps Engineer asset begins in Elsenborn and may not be removed or moved for turns 1 through 3. So it's in the same place as another chit, so I didn't put another bingo chit there, but this guy cannot be moved voluntarily in the first few turns of the game, so some limited advantage for that unit there. And then from there, we're going to go south, because that covers really all the rules for the units in the south. We have the special rule that no armor may cross the Uren Bridge, which is this bridge right here. And so I have a marker on sort of the one side of it, just to denote that armor may cross it. We have a bunch of armor, which means that this armor is going to have to go either down here or somehow elsewhere around that particular bridge. And then finally, the last thing to really call out is that the 14th, what is it, I have it here on the list, 14th Regiment of the 5th FJ, so this guy right here, may cross army boundaries. There are some limitations about how far they can go. Some of this is reflecting the fact that the rest of the parent unit, the 5th FJ, rather than FG, I might have said FG by accident, they're down here, these two units. So they're across one army boundary line. This unit is north. This unit can basically operate around the border of the 5th Army and the 7th Army boundary zones. So just some unit cohesion business to think about right there, so that you actually have the unit cohesion for attacking and all of that other good stuff. But there's still some limitations for that unit to keep in mind. Now, there's plenty of other special rules that don't necessarily need a chit attached to them. So there you can see, we talked about this before in the last video. There are certain limitations that certain advantages for armor units that they would ordinarily get, but they do not get on turn 1. Reaction chits are gone after this turn, so the allied reaction rounds are 1 turn only, but they will have 2 reaction 3s in total. There's a few other asset markers that are available, and we'll talk through that as we play through. And then everything else here is the stuff I talked about. There is a special rule for turning retreats into both lose 1 results. So that is something that the Germans will use to help clear paths where they don't want the Allied units retreating onto roads that may be useful. And then basically everything else we already talked about. There are the German area restrictions, basically units that are that start in a army zone between the yellow borders have to stay there until those restrictions are lifted or certain circumstances can occur. So, sounds complex. It's really not that bad. In fact, I'm sure I'm actually making it worse by showing these chits and things, but they're really mnemonics for myself to remember, right, there are restrictions. These guys don't get artillery. These guys can't reaction move very much. That sort of thing. But really not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, so let's start talking about the opening turn at last, right? It's important that we actually get to that part of the video, right? Let's get into it. Okay, so the opening turn has a special starting sequence. So the first several markers you see here on the action round track are the required order that we have to play them in. When that is complete, we will have the ability to draw from the action chit cup, which we have a few scattered things in there for that purpose. And the allies still will be holding on to a additional reaction 3 marker that they have to wait until after a German chit is pulled from the cup before they can play it, or they can choose to play it as the last chit of the turn. So there is a little bit of an order here, but there's still player choice along the way. So the first thing that will occur is that we'll have a German combat round. Now, per special rule, armor units ordinarily get to move 1 hex of movement before combat, either as just some bonus movement or to help position for an attack on turn 1. They are not allowed to do that. So any units that are not adjacent to a allied unit in this first activation basically will not be able to join or maneuver to support those attacks. So it's very basic restriction. Then we have a movement chit. So you can imagine the purpose of this will be break some holes in the allied line, or at least be in good shape to do something like that. And then we'll be able to move, so ideally sending armor through gaps and make some advancements. There's a similar restriction there that ordinarily when armor units are done moving, I believe this is the case. Yeah, in supply, armor units not adjacent to an enemy, or no, I'm sorry. Armor units that do not move may perform combat. I'm sorry, that's my mistake. So so as an addition to movement, armor units that do not move can conduct combat. So it's sort of a limited armor combat instead of moving. They would get the advance after combat potential and all that. But that is also not allowed on turn 1. So the sort of additional armor abilities that they get, either slight positioning or not moving at all on a move and doing combat, do not apply for these chits. So this should be a straightforward, we will have a relatively limited number of things we can opt to do, then we will do that. Then the allies get their reaction move, so they'll get to pick 3 units on the board and do a reaction move with them. So a pretty straightforward action there. They will not be able to counterattack. So I suspect that reaction is really going to be around containing breakthroughs, if anything. Then the allied player will get to place a traffic marker. So this is available on turns 1 through 3. They're going to place it on a hex, and basically to move through the hex with this marker would cost the Germans an additional 2 movement points. And this represents sort of the bad bad luck of the Germans having a lot of traffic issues and units going down roads, thinking they were on separate roads, but were on like the same road that historically happened and slowed down the Germans. So they'll place that strategically, hoping to slow down the Germans. And then the Germans will then use the what's the name? Sorry, guys. Von der Height parachute unit, which will either land somewhere behind Allied lines as a unit, or depending on a die roll, may simply be a movement point impediment to the Allies. And this is representing some paratroopers that were used by the Germans that really historically did not have as good of impact as they wanted. They sort of harassed some Germans behind the line, or harassed the Allies behind their lines, attacked them from behind a little bit, but really didn't do a whole lot. And many of them, I think, were either captured or killed. But it's just a little something that could help the Germans with their own movement impediment. And then once we're done with that, we will begin pulling from the cup. And then one special note that the rulebook throws out is that the Allied player will have had the last action round in the sequence list above. That means if another Allied chit is drawn, it will be the second action chit in a row, and the following chit pool must be German. So something to keep in mind. They're talking about this chit. These are technically not action chits, but they are special markers that will be placed in this order per the special turn 1 starting sequence. So, all that explanation complete, what do we have left to do? Well, we are going to have combats, right? That's ultimately what is left to do. Now, where are we not going to have combats? I think at a high level, we can talk a little bit about this. Well, we could try to attack across a destroyed bridge over here. I'm not sure how well that would go, but it would be these 2 units attacking this unit. Due to the ratio, it would be 6-4 at a starting point, which is really 1-1. And then you're only going to get worse shifts due to the terrain. Probably not good to attack there. These guys are not adjacent, so they can't attack anything. These guys technically are not adjacent to anyone, so they can't attack anything either. So then it's a question of, do we attack this guy? Now, we could do it with some armor that we have and some infantry. We could get what would be 10-4, which would be 2-1 odds. And then we'll probably have some shifts either way. So we'd have to deal with that. So feasible, right? Feasible that we might attack here. We can't attack over here, and we could attack here, but here's what I'm thinking why we probably wouldn't. We could try, but knowing that these guys will surrender if we knock them out of supply, I'm thinking maybe we just try to bypass them somehow and knock them out of supply instead of attacking them. I mean, obviously we can't attack them, can't attack this guy, and if we attack this guy, it's only going to be a 3-3, a 1-1. And then you take into account the woods, and there's a defense shift. So, I mean, that's really not ideal. Really not ideal to attack there. Very bad odds, all things considered. Very likely. Same thing over here. I mean, we'd maybe get 6-3. So that'd be 2-1, reduced down to probably a 1-1 due to the shift. That one's a little bit more reasonable. But when we look, it is a two-step unit, so I'm thinking we probably would rather bypass that unit than anything. We probably will smoosh this guy somehow, right? It feels like that's probably more feasible and more worthwhile to do to knock that guy out, and then we at least open up the path to come up this way. And then there's otherwise the more likely situation we're going to find ourselves in is we're going to attack up here, right? We're going to have let's see, that would be 7 attacking 3, so 2-1 with some shifts due to the rough, so feasible. These 2 units may be attacking here. That's feasible. These 2 units attacking here. That's also feasible, but a lot tougher than you might think. We do have the ability to use artillery, which would add in enough support to help probably a good bit, shift some of these combats from 1-1 to 2-1s. But we have to be careful because that's all we're going to get for the turn. So if we use our artillery, all of our artillery in all of the sectors that we have, and we basically have an artillery and a rocket artillery, one each for each army section. They're really just going to be used for the one combat, right? So you have to pick which one's going to get the bonus or the benefit. So we probably don't need one here, but we would maybe not need one here, but we probably want to be using them for the combats up here, knowing that the allies aren't going to be able to use their artillery support for some of these units. And one really important distinction is that the German artillery, once used, it's done for the turn. Allied artillery is used per action. So if the Allies do use, currently they have 1 artillery support marker for the 5th Corps, this guy right here. Once he's used for this combat round, it's done. But if we have additional combat rounds or additional combats on other action shit rounds, those 4 combat points, 4 strength points, will be available to throw into a combat once for each marker. So the Allies have a tremendous artillery advantage. It's not in the sheer number of counters they have, but in the fact that they can reuse counters pretty much every time there's every single round. Now that's still 1 combat per round, so it's we will definitely be reliant on reinforcements to have more artillery as the Allies, but they will have that advantage each way through. So very similar to some of my other videos covering this series, I probably need to kind of think through how these combats are going to actually be conducted before I do it, and I need to spend some time off camera thinking through that. So I'm going to take care of that, but when we come back, we will talk through the combats in pretty close scrutiny so that you guys understand kind of what's going on, and it'll be a little more coherent for everybody to follow what's happening. Okay, so let's start talking about the opening combat round, and I think I want to try to do like a sort of south to north um, sort of process for the most part, because I think that'll be easier and we can look at things from an army sector perspective. Now, because I'm doing an in-depth long take of all of this, you guys will have to bear with me. I'm going to explain what my thinking is as we go. I may get some things wrong. I'm not a perfect player, and I may realize after the fact that I made a major screw up. If you're along for the whole ride, I will cover my screw ups as I recognize them, but otherwise, let me know in the comment section down below. If you see something amiss or you have a question, I'll do what I can to answer that question. So, something to keep in mind. The blown bridges is a problem, particularly in the 7th Army sector that we're concerning ourselves with. So, basically from here south. In this sector, there are a number of destroyed bridges. In fact, there are 4 destroyed bridges at the beginning of the game. There's one right here, right at the border of the area. There's one here, there's one here, and one way down here. So basically, no matter what the 7th Army decides to do,
they're going to have to deal with broken bridges, or destroyed bridges, rather. Now, the Germans can repair bridges, but they can only do that once per turn for a given army sector area. So, the 7th Army can basically choose on turn 1 to deal with repairing one of these 4. Now, uh, repairing a bridge is relatively easy to do. A blown bridge may be rebuilt by either side simply by moving a unit across the blown bridge. Hex side, the bridge is considered immediately rebuilt. Remove the destroyed marker. We can only rebuild, as the Germans, rebuild one bridge in each arm area per turn. And there is a track, or rather a holding box, to denote that. So, on our first combat, just as point of example, we could choose to attack this unit right here. Now, it has a 4 strength, and it would be attacked from across a minor river hex side. It's also in a village. It's also in light woods. So, what all does this mean? The light woods doesn't do much. Being attacked from across a minor river is a defender shift, and defending in a village is a +1 defense strength. So, this guy would have, instead of 4 strength, it would have 5. These units attacking across would then have the odds reduced by 1 shift, or 1 shift to the left for the defender. As is, if it was 6 to 5, that would be 1 to 1, which would be reduced to 1 to 2. Not good odds, I can tell you. If we decide to throw in our artillery and we threw everything into the mix, that changes the equation. So first we would look at the regular artillery. Well, that would add 3, so it would be 9 to 5. That would still not be 2 to 1, so it would be 1 to 1 reduced to 1 to 2. So in order for this attack to make any sort of sense, we would have to throw in the rockets as well. The Nebelwerfer. I'm sure my pronunciation is not the best, but there you go. And what you do there is you actually look at the terrain. In this case, the terrain that matters is the village. And you take that modifier to the value. So it's a -1 to the 3 value. That would mean it's a 2. So we'd effectively be adding 5 artillery to the combat. So altogether, we would have 11 to 5. That would be 2 to 1, reduced by 1 shift to 1 to 1. And 1 to 1 is actually not so bad. And what we would maybe want to have happen here is a retreat result might be preferred instead of turning it into a BL1. That would allow our units to cross the river and repair the destroyed bridge, which would enable us to have basically German units across the river line, repaired a bridge so we don't have to worry about more units coming down this way, and we start to threaten the road to Luxembourg. Now, the Allies would still have an armor unit here, but then these guys could come over as well. Now, I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not sure if I want to do that. Part of the reason is if we repair this bridge, we can't repair any other bridges. And there are other bridges that are worthwhile looking at to fix, namely in the 7th Army sector, the one in Vianden here. If we're able to repair this bridge and we maneuver our way over here and knock some units around, we are going to be better able, as I pull the camera back a little bit, to head down this direction, maybe get down to Edelbrook, and we have a path to Bastogne via a southern-driven advance rather than purely only a western advance or an advance from the northeast. So this bridge might be more important to get than maybe one of these bridges down here. It's ultimately up to us to decide what do we want to prioritize, Bastogne maybe, or the possibility of Bastogne, or put more threat on Luxembourg City. We could still threaten Luxembourg from a northerly route, but we do have multiple bridges, 1, 2, 3, that the Allies could simply try to destroy as they work their way across the area. Now, the Allies can only destroy certain bridges, so the way each Allied move round, each engineer unit may destroy any one bridge within 3 hexes of it. If the Allies have a combat unit on at least one side of the bridge, either side may blow a bridge when a friendly unit suffers a retreat result in combat and retreats across the bridge. After the retreat is complete, that player rolls the die On a 1 of 3, the bridge is blown. A player may also destroy a bridge if an enemy unit attacks across a bridge hex side. If the defender still holds the hex at the end of combat, the bridge is considered blown unless the defender chooses otherwise. A destroyed bridge may be crossed by infantry for a cost of 1 additional movement point, or by a motorized unit for a cost of 3 additional movement points. A destroyed bridge cannot be crossed using road movement. So, you can cross that bridge advancing after combat, and then you would be able to repair it. You can also spend the extra movement points to move across the bridge and repair it. But again, we're left with 1 bridge repair for this 7th Army. So again, how would we want to deal with this? Now we could make that big combat occur and then, cross and not repair the bridge, or not repair it right away. There's complications with that, I guess. It just makes it more difficult to operate down there. And if we don't repair it right away, then that could still just become part of the problem. And yeah, we at no point can a supply trace be across a blown bridge or unbridged river hex side. So basically, the Germans could trace to this hex for supply, but could get no further than 5 hexes. So really, that limits their operation to here unless they repair that bridge, in which case that locks this off for a whole turn. We'd have to wait for the next turn. I'm thinking, or I'm wondering if maybe we forego worrying too much about this. Maybe we could attack, but I think we're better off focusing over here and working our way towards Bastogne with that. That's my thinking. So this is why I think if we're going to do an attack and we have these guys operating down here, I would rather have those artillery used down here to blow out this unit if possible, and go from there and let these guys hold the line for the moment. I'd rather outflank them and cause problems than try to make headway down here and get stuck, because really the main axis of advance over here is going to be through this bridge, and that's using a different bridge repair slot, where here this just supports getting over to Bastogne faster. So if I prioritize Bastogne over Luxembourg City, I think this is where we want our bridge destroyed to occur. Now we could still attack, but we then are sacrificing our artillery we'd be using over here. So that's the conundrum that we're really working in. And I might even have to double check the supply rolls, because if we can't even count as part of our 5 hexes to a road there being a river, then that really makes it more obvious not to attack here at all. I'm going to take a pause here and consider the rule verbiage before we go further. Okay, so I hope you guys aren't annoyed with my having to stop talking and stopping, but this is the way it goes for the first turn, obviously, of a new game. I did pose a question on Board Game Geek around this. The way I read the rule is you cannot trace any part of your supply line across a unbridged river hex side or a blown bridge, meaning even if we had these units attack here, force the unit back, advanced, if we chose not to repair the bridge, they would be out of supply if they cross the river. That is how I read that, which means that we either commit to going to Luxembourg or we don't, at least in this early phase of the game. We can worry about other pieces of the puzzle later. I think given the position and the lack of allied attack power over here, we really don't need to worry about that right now. I think we do want to open up the door to Bastogne as much as possible. The sooner we get to Bastogne and the sooner we can solidly take it from the Allies, the better off we are. So I think we are not going to attack along this line here. We're just not going to do it. And maybe I will have determined that that was a mistake later. But based on our limited bridge repair capacity, I think we need to focus on making sure that the center is as open and free as possible for the duration of the game, and that is going to be our important piece of the puzzle. So that makes the 7th Army combat pretty simple. We're not going to have any. For the center, obviously, the only adjacency we have for combat is really here. So we have a unit who is in light woods, which really doesn't help anything for combat. Only the Germans get the benefit of the west wall terrain here. And the Allied unit is in a town, a village, which provides them a defender shift. A +1 defense. So that is a 5 strength unit in that zone there. Now, what I'm realizing is that the let's see, what is it? There is a rule about unit integrity that I think that unit may have some problems with. Let me see if I can find it. I know it exists. Divisional integrity. Almost all units in the game are part of a division with a number shown to the left, the unit symbol. The defending allied unit must be within 3 hexes of another unit of its division at the instance of combat, or you get 1 shift to the right. So that would mean if we look at this unit, he is a member of the 28th formation division, and the closest 28th is 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away. So in effect, we can attack that unit. He gets a +1 defense, but we get an attacker shift to the right. There is no 8th Corps artillery asset present either, and so we are able to attack this guy. Now, when we look at the combat power, we have 4, 10, so that would be 2 to 1, and then shifted to the right is a 3 to 1 result. Now, here's some tricky bits. If we force this guy to retreat, he could retreat across the bridge and attempt to blow it, and we wouldn't necessarily want that. If we put a lot of our artillery into it, we could increase the chance maybe of some sort of elimination or a exchange result, but I'm not sure that's really feasible. I mean, we could maybe make it 4 to 1 and maybe we'd get lucky, but I'm not sure that's really worth spending all of artillery yet. We probably want to leave some artillery for the second activation. So FYI, the 7th Infantry isn't going to get many activations this turn, but in the cup are 5th Panzer Army and 6th Panzer Army chits that will enable units in these 2 sectors to move and for armor units attack again. So I think we need to make sure that we don't use up all of our assets too early, and we just try to get across the river so we have some operating room. So I think we will have our first combat, and we will have these units, which are all near one another, support, divisional integrity is not an issue here. So we will have 10 to 5, that's 2 to 1. And then because of the divisional integrity issue that this unit currently has, that makes it a 3 to 1 combat. And I think that's all we're going to have involved in that. Trying to see if there's anything else that matters for this combat. I do not believe so. Yeah, I think that's it. So 3 to 1, we'll have the die roll and we'll see what we get. And we rolled a 6. So 3 to 1, a 6 is a DR star. So a step loss and a retreat. I do like the idea of forcing a retreat. So a DR star means that if this unit is a 2 step unit, it will take a step loss and retreat. So I definitely think we want to try to do that. Must retreat 2 hexes. Yeah, I think they're going to do that. So rather than it just be a BL1, we want to hit them and force a retreat to help open up the way here. So step loss, retreat 1, 2 hexes. I know that the Germans have a special ability to keep units from retreating, but I think we want them away from the bridge so we can get across it. I'd rather fight once we've crossed the bridge than not. So we force that. Now that unit does have an opportunity to try to blow the bridge, but they need to roll a 1 to 3. So we will do that. And they do blow the bridge. So that is unfortunate. Now, what's interesting is that this is the bridge that armor couldn't cross anyway, so it will require infantry to do it. And what I think I'll do is I will advance these units after combat. I will not advance the armor because I'm going to send the armor elsewhere. Or I guess I could. I need to think through this. Depending on how we want this to go, I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt. It just depends on where I want to send this. I can't send this armor unit over this bridge on turn 1 on the next movement, but I could send them up this way, and that could certainly help. So I will advance here. Well, I don't know. I need to keep them all together. So the 16th, 116th needs to operate together. Maybe I don't. Oh, this is tough. Oh, man. Yeah, I think this will have to do, because the only other thing I could maybe attempt to do, I want to put these guys out of supply. I want to get into Saint Sangvith, and it's going to take a certain amount of effort to do that. So I think for right now, this is tough. This is really tough. I think we leave these guys down here, and we're just going to send our armor west that way. Okay, so that was the first combat. We didn't use artillery. We didn't take a step loss. The Americans were able to blow a bridge. That kind of sucks, but it's a bridge that we wouldn't have been sending our armor across anyway. So we'll end up sending our infantry across, and we'll repair that bridge. And we'll see what comes of that, I guess, is the focus or the point that we're trying to deal with. Okay, so then that means the next attack opportunity would be here. I do not think it is worthwhile to try, because it is woods, the infantry get a bonus, so I don't think it's worthwhile to try there. I think we just want to leave them nestled in a pocket. So I think they will not be attacked at all, and then it's really all about the 6th Panzer Army sector and what we decide to do up here. Now, a couple of things to take note of is that the lack of the artillery to help for some of these units up here matters, as well as the ability for the engineers in Elsenborn to destroy bridges and different things. I'm trying to figure out what else we need to consider here. The main thing we need to make sure is we start clearing some of these roads. One, to kind of get behind these units, obviously, to get towards Saint-Vith, and to basically start figuring out a way to wrap these guys up. Yeah, so the engineers here could blow some bridges nearby if the unit is there. So these guys could blow this bridge on a move action. Yeah. And there's a shift to the left for any defending allied unit within 3 hexes of an engineer. So because there's an engineer in this hex, there's going to be a shift to the left for 1, 2, 3, for basically this unit, this unit, this unit, this unit, and this unit. Even if they can't get artillery support, they're going to get the engineer shift because of the nearby engineer. So this is going to be tricky. I need to think through how I want to do this. I think obviously there's a point to trying to attack here. I think there needs to be an attack here, and then everywhere else is circumstantial. And I need to think through this for a second. So once again, I'm going to take a quick break to consider the options. Okay, so I think I actually think this is more straightforward than I would have thought, because we kind of have limited options and we don't want to take too many hits that we can't replace properly. But this guy here, he doesn't have any divisional integrity issues to worry about, but he is only a 1-step unit, and we do want to just nuke him out of the way. The paratroop units here, the FJ units, are 5 strength attacking this one guy. That is 5-to-1 odds. Now he is in rough terrain, which provides a defender shift. It's not just an infantry shift, it's just a defender shift straight up. So the 5-to-1 becomes a 4-to-1. 4-to-1's pretty good, and we can turn this into a BL1. So I think this is really almost guaranteed here. So we'll roll the die. I rolled a 5. So 5-to-1, again, reduced down to a 4-to-1. This guy can't get any sort of support. He is too far away, and cannot get the artillery support. At least I'm pretty sure he can't get artillery support. Let me quickly double check. Units of their core only. And let's see. Yeah, this unit is not a member of the core of the 5th Corps, so it doesn't actually get the ability to receive artillery support. So that really is it. So 4-to-1, we rolled a 5 as a DR star. So ordinarily that would be a no loss because it's a 1-step unit, and it would have to retreat. It would retreat 2 hexes and sort of seal the deal. But we're going to go ahead and take this as a loss. So this unit is eliminated. And we'll take, let's see, we lose 1 factor, we lose 1 factor. So which one to lose it on? I think we'll just lose it from this guy, and we will advance after combat. So that much is resolved, or maybe we don't advance after combat. Well, I think we do. So there we go. So we knocked that unit out. We have now technically cleared a path, and in fact, quite a good path to get to Saint-Vith with some movement. Now we may not be able to make full advantage of that, but we'll see. The next combat that I think is really important is going to be this one. So this is a unit that is not allowed to get artillery support this turn. and also cannot be moved with a reaction marker, so it's definitely a worthwhile unit to try to attack. He is sitting in rough terrain, which means he's going to get a shift. He also gets another shift due to the engineers. So that's 2 shifts, but a 3 strength unit. We are going to want to throw as much as we can into this. Now, the units eligible for attack are these 3. So it is divisional integrity is not a problem, and that is a total of 7 combat factors. I think we do want to use some of our artillery. I think if we did, right now it is a 7-3. That's 2-1. If you take 2 shifts into account, that's a 1-2. So let's figure out what our odds would be if we threw in more. If we put in just the 1 artillery, that would be another 4, so that would be 11-3. So that would be 9 ultimately, 9-3 if you reduce down. So that would be 3-1, which would get knocked down to a 1-1. I don't think we want that. Then if we decided to put in our additional asset here, we have to look at the rough is a -2 to the strength, which would mean just a 1 more, but that would get us 12-3. So that would be 4-1 minus the 2 shifts would be at 2-1. That would enable us to have a little bit of a better chance getting a BL1 result than we might otherwise get, but 2-1 is still a little bit dicey. There's still a chance we may not get really what we need, and I believe this is still a 2-step unit. It is. So do we end up with a 1-1, or do we go with a 2-1 or a 1-2? I mean, any of these are results we need to think through. What I think we're gonna do, what I think we need to try to do, I think it's worth knocking this unit out so that we can get that stuff there. Trying to see if there's anything else we can really do to make this better, and I'm not sure that we do, honestly. Yeah, gosh. I think what we do is we reserve our rocket artillery, and what this will just give us is an 11, basically 3-1, which will reduce to a 1-1. And I think the 1-1 is as good as we can really get it without wasting points. So we'll see what we get here. I rolled a 5. So 1-1, a 5, that's a DR result. And then I think what we want to do is, do we want the BL1 or not? He will have to retreat 2 hexes no matter what. And there's no way for him to retreat 2 hexes that puts him in Bullingen, which is what we really want to get. So I think this is actually okay. An okay result for the Germans. Just making sure that the retreat rolls, if there's anything else we need to worry about. So I think if we look at this, they would have to go 1-2 no matter what. And then we would be advancing after combat. And I think we end up doing this. Yeah, I think that's what's going to work here, and then we are done with this guy for the turn. This artillery. And so that puts us in a pretty good spot, and we've opened up the way for Piper to come in and grab the fuel for turn two, which will enable him to go kind of outside his uh, normal line of supply to kind of wreak havoc and do whatever. I think this will work. I think this is the right thing we want to do. Um, Boy, this is going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky, tricky, tricky. Okay, and then do we want any other combats? Well, keeping in mind, we could attack here. Now, this unit is in a village. He also gets the engineer shift, but he doesn't get artillery. So he would effectively be defending with a 4. We could be maybe working with um, 5 to 4 and then some shifts. That's not so great, so I'm not sure attacking here is worthwhile. We could try to attack here, but this unit would be able to use uh, artillery. Um, and the only special rule for him is that he can't do a react move, but he would get both the engineer bonus and artillery. So we probably don't want to attack there. We probably don't even want to attack up here either. We just don't have the force really necessary to do it. But I think that's it for our first combat chit. I know it doesn't seem like a lot. Maybe we should have done a lot more. But you have to keep in mind we weren't allowed to do any additional movement before this. Um, but I think we've opened up enough of a hole here that we're going to be able to do reasonably well. Um, reasonably well. Uh, yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, no, I think we're good to go. And we can look now at the movement chit. So the combat chit is over. Pretty straightforward. Uh, yeah, I think we were all set across the board for all of that. Um, and now we'll do movement. Uh, all that sides units may move, subject to supply movement rules. Um, and they do not get extra combat. So this whole next action, the second chit of the game, is going to be all about movement. So here's what I'm going to do. Rather than show you guys every movement that I'm going to take, I'm going to conduct that movement off camera, and I'll just simply return back here to show you guys the end result of the movement phase, and then I'll explain kind of what I tried to do, what the intention was, and um, we'll go from there. One thing I do have to keep in mind, and this is going to be what makes it tricky, um, is that any units that start north of this line can't go south. So I actually can't send these units down here to Saint-Vith. I am going to have to take Saint-Vith with units from over here, which is going to be really tricky, to be honest. So I may, I can probably still do it within the first couple turns and get those conditional reinforcements, but it's going to take some finagling to do that. And so I maybe still have opened myself up to some weak play here if I haven't done these opening moves right. So we'll see how that goes. But okay, I'm going to take care of this movement. We come back, we'll see what's going on. Okay, so here we are after the German move. So in trying to interpret uh, in trying to understand the motorized movement rules, or road movement rules rather, um, motorized units and infantry units moving as motorized that pay the road movement rate of half a movement point may not stack with any friendly unit while moving at the motorized road movement rate, including in their starting and ending hexes. Now, what I'm wondering is, like, does that count as you move through units? Does that, because I imagine traffic is an issue, right? Traffic would be part of the problem. So I would interpret that as meaning that we can't do the motorized movement half a point through units. I may have to ask this question on Board Game Geek as well. So I tried to move or set up my units such that the infantry tried to get off the roads to allow motorized units to get the most benefit. And so I have some of my armor up here to focus up in this area. We continued to move up and around. I did get Piper into Bullingen, as well as a few other armor units moved into this hex as well, all meeting the stacking requirements, but their intent is to continue to try to punch this way to try to come up behind these guys and get Elzenborn and start to cause problems for these units down here, ideally. I did not get these guys out of supply yet due to the movement restrictions. I mean, I really have really restricted capability to because I can't cross this line. I can't sneak down here like I would love to and take Saint-Vith. That would be great. But I have set myself up, depending on what chits are brought up next, to crush this unit, hopefully enable us to move through here to Saint-Vith, potentially. In fact, depending on what we roll next, we'll actually be able to get there because I believe Zocs don't apply across rivers. Yeah, they do not extend across unbridged river hex sides. So technically, on our next movement phase, this unit, because we would leave this guy right here, could go bop bop and take Saint-Vith. So I think we're good. I actually rerouted the Lair division armor up through here with the idea that if we can take Saint-Vith, these guys can take a northerly route over here to this victory hex on the roads. So some of our armor, rather than concentrate it for Bastogne, where we split them a little bit, I took them north in a roundabout way to try to make some gains through there. So kind of some weirdness I'm deciding to do. The big issue being that that bridge won't allow armor to cross it, so I'm kind of, my hands are tied a little bit. As I moved over here, I just got into position to have further attacks conducted through here. Our main point is wanting to ensure if we have to attack this guy and he moves across and blows the bridge, that we can instead go up and around so this guy is under threat, major threat, to be eliminated, and then the rest of my units can start heading out that way. Still, though, we are getting across over here, and so these guys are going to be able to start heading down south and start to cause problems, even though we haven't crossed the river over here. We're just sort of out of gas from that perspective. We did use the bridge repair over here, so the bridge that armor couldn't cross, we did repair it. So both the 5th Panzer and the 7th Army bridge use markers are used, but right now we don't have a lot of major bridge concerns. The 6th Panzer Army can still build a bridge, and the Allies may be looking at blowing some bridges up here, but not a major concern at the moment. So all things considered, I think we've done okay in the opening phase. We've basically put the Allies on the back foot. We should, maybe not the best back foot, but at least we've created a circumstance that across the next activations for the 6th and the 5th Panzer, that this unit or the set of units should be able to continue an offensive and put us in a pretty good position for turn 3 onwards. At least that's the hope, and that's the thinking that we have. But I think this whole area up here is going to be a challenge. So, okay, we're done with that. So now we have the Allied reaction move. So on turn 1, the Allies get 2 reaction, 3 chits. The first reaction 3 chit play during the turn allows units in 3 Allied hexes to move. That's errata. It is 3 Allied units, not hexes. And there are some special rules that the 2nd and 99th divisions up here can't do the reaction move. And so that really leaves us with units down here, or some of these guys have that opportunity. And so we will need to think through that. This guy might try to get up to Saint-Vith and protect Saint-Vith, and same thing with these guys trying to retreat out of there. So that may be what we decide to do. But we only get 3, so we have to be really picky with which 3 are we going to use for this purpose. It really could be the 106th to try to protect Saint-Vith if we think it's important enough. And if the other units over here all over the place are good enough to hold. So I'm going to think on that for a minute, and then when we come back, I'll show which units have moved. Okay, here we are after the reaction 3 marker is played. What I did is I pulled this unit over the river that cost 1, 2, and then 3 to enter Saint-Vith. So we did pull back to hold the town. I pulled one of these guys back, 1, 2, 3 here. And this guy I did not move because I thought it was more important to move this armor unit down here to keep the Germans from wrapping up these guys and taking Malmedy too soon. We want to delay that. So I did move an armor unit down here to this clear terrain hex, sort of projecting some Zoc coverage a little bit, just so we continue to have something of some allied line. Now, what that means is that this poor sucker is going to be out of luck after the Germans go on their next move. Very likely, anyway. I think that's kind of unavoidable almost. If we get lucky, we'll try to save this guy. But, 3 movement points, he can try to get over here, but he doesn't project a Zoc. If I read that right, yeah, no Zoc from this unit. And he's going to go away if out of supply at the end of turn 2 anyway. So if there was someone to lose, it was going to be that guy. But at least he is an impediment where he is. So I think, given the game circumstances, that is the best reaction 3 move I could make, given what the Germans were able to achieve on their first couple of actions. Try to put something in Saint-Vith to defend it. Try to create some Zoc flows so that the Germans don't have free reign in the backfield. And that's as good, I think, as we were going to be able to get it. Now, okay, I got the order a little bit wrong, and so I apologize for that. I guess it wouldn't have mattered for what we did, but according to the rulebook, the traffic asset should have been placed before the reaction 3 chit occurred. Now, I don't think that really changes anything, but I do think, let's see, where is going to be the best place for that to occur? Where will that be most useful? This is actually a tough call because there's not that many great places to do it. And this chit is going to get reused every turn. So it's just for the rest of this turn, where would we want this to be? Let me make sure I understand the placement rules for this. Okay. We would place this in any road hex and cost in any road hex. And entering that road, we want 2 additional movement points. Okay. So, where do we think there's going to be a lot more movement? Um, I think here makes the most sense. So the reason why I say that is while this unit could entertain the idea of moving 1, 2, 3, they will not be able to move that far up because they'll go 1, 2, and then this will cost 3 movement points. They'll get plugged up here. And so in a way, this guy almost serves like an additional unit or Zoc that slows down the Germans from being able to go up through here, basically. And let me make sure that there's not an easier way for them to go. If this armor unit tried to circumvent this area, it would be for motorized unit. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 rough terrain for 5, and then it would be 2 to get here. Yeah, this would keep this unit from going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into here. So either way, I think this is the best place to put it given the game position right now. Just makes it so that, obviously anyone that is ready for combat already is going to have combat. Can't avoid that. And some advance after combats could occur. But this is the one place where the Germans have the possibility of doing movement through and penetrating deeper. That will be our spot. And it doesn't matter who controls the space as long as it's a road. So this is our best placement, I think, given the circumstances. So that is done. So the reaction move is done. The only other special thing we need to do then is the Vanderhaut unit. And as we look at that, basically, make sure we get this. It may be placed on any clear or light woods hex that does not contain a village or a town in the 6th Panzer Armor area that is not occupied or in the Zoc of an allied unit. So we could try to plug this guy somewhere back here. And we place it, and then we do the die roll to see what happens to it. So any clear light woods hex that does not contain a village or a town in the 6th Panzer Armory that doesn't have enemy units in it. That's tricky. That is a tricky placement. Not in a Zoc, so we could target right here. It doesn't have a Zoc, so what does this really do for us? If it's placed face up, it is a normal German unit with no movement allowance or Zoc in a single step. It is subject to normal supply rules starting on turn 2. May never be motorized and never receive artillery support. Otherwise, it becomes a +2 movement action. So, what to do there? No movement allowance. So wherever he's placed, he's just going to exist and just be an annoying thing. Maybe to stop reinforcements from coming over here very easily. That would be maybe the one use of it. We could pick here. I'm not sure that does much more other than ensuring what? We have a town over here under our control. I'm not sure if this unit's very valuable for anything, honestly. Not projecting a Zoc, it just doesn't do a whole lot for us. So I guess I'll target here, and we'll just see. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, I guess what I could do, if this is reinforcement, go 1, 2, 3, 4 movement versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, 6 to get here. I could pick up here, and that would slow things down a little bit. It almost doesn't matter, to be honest. I don't think this unit is going to do a whole lot for us. So if he is just a guy to slow things down, then we'll use it for that purpose. So we'll place it up there. We'll roll the die. I rolled a 3. So it is not placed face up. It is simply allied movement points plus 2 up here. So not much of an advantage or usefulness for us. And that leads us now to cup drawing. So we are now at the point where we can draw from the cup. And I don't think there's much else we really are concerned with. So let's see. Okay, so the allied player can't play their other action 3 until reaction 3 marker chit until the 5th or 6th Panzer Army chit has been played. So we're just going to randomly draw a chit, and we'll see what that is. And that is a reinforcement chit. So we will play reinforcement. So what we do is we look at the turn track. We look at the first box, and there are 2 stacks of units. There's A1 and A2. There's one A2 unit. I'm sorry, one A1 unit, rather. So it is a part of the 4th Division. And he can be placed in either A or B. I think, given the circumstances of what we have, I'm just going to put him in B. To enter in B, rather. Well, maybe we don't do that. Try to see if there's anything else worth looking at doing here. Units may move. After placement, units may move, and armor units may perform combat after all movement is complete. Okay, so this guy could use road movement. He could go 1, 2, 3. And I think that makes sense to do because we just want to make sure that we're covered over here, and we're screening Luxembourg. And so that makes sense to set that up. And then we have a bunch of A2s, which all go into H. And this is part of the reason why we put our units where we did. So if we look at H is up here, we have units, all of the 5th Corps. Let's show these guys. All the 5th Corps and the 1st Division and 7th Division. And this is an armored division. So you can see we've got some armor units. They will be able to attack after all movement is completed, depending on where they go. So let's see. How do we want to deal with this? Okay, so
This guy can come in at H, and what he's probably going to end up doing is going 1, 2, 3 to aid that guy. And then the rest of these folks this is tricky. This is tricky, guys. I'm sorry that we're seeing a delay on camera. I should probably turn it off, but now I wonder how this marker really works for motorized movement, because it doesn't really say either way how this impacts motorized movement. I would imagine it still applies, or else why even bother having the rule, right? So if these guys came in an H and they did motorize, it would be 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and these guys could all end up in Malmedy if they go this way, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Do something like that. Now that keeps them out of combat, but at least it provides a space to pivot wherever we think they're needed. So I think I'm okay with that. Right, starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, and 5.5, so that way they respect the road movement rules. They bypass this guy entirely, but they're in a good position to react or maneuver as they see fit. So I think that's some goodness. Okay, so now that we've done that chit pull, we're going to do the next. Now, it cannot be an allied marker next. It has to be one of the German markers, even if we draw another one. So we'll get it pulled up, and we have the 5th Panzer Army chit is the next chit. So after we play this, it will now allow the allied player to do a reaction, but we are going to have the 5th Panzer Army, which is, again, the center sector. And according to this, all German units located in the 5th Panzer Army area performs a move round. All armor units starting in the 5th Panzer Army area may attack at the end of movement. Infantry and mechanized units may move but not attack. So, what are we going to do? Well, I think the main thing we'll look at doing is we're going to have this guy go move like this, so that he's pressuring here. He is allowed to do that, but he can't attack. I think we're going to have this guy go 1, 2, 3. He can attack. And we can't really do much with these armor until we clear the hex, so what we may simply need to do is have these guys, they've basically done movement. They could attack here. Here we could go 1, 2, 3, and at least put these guys out of supply, I think. Well, I guess, yeah, they would be put out of supply. And so then these armor units could attack that unit in pretty good shape.
So that seems like the right moves there for movement. Don't want to move this guy because he's protecting the supply line across the bridge. Here, I think we want to have... Now, this is going to get tricky. What I want to make sure we do is we have the capability of getting up here for an attack. So what we would see is 1, 2, 1, 2. We'd add on 1 unit that can stack, and then if I wanted, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Crossing the Rhine rivers wants to be 1, 2, 3. Like so, and then this guy would have 1, 2, or well, 1, 2, 3, and then this guy's Zoc locked, and let's see, just to make it easier for this guy, he would go like this, and so that puts this guy stuck. We have some momentum going this way, and that's as much as we can do. And so now we would have combats. So I think the way this is going to need to go, if I look at the supply impacts to this guy being out of supply, and he's out of supply right now because he cannot trace a supply line. He can't trace across the river, the unbridged river here. He can't go this way, and then he's surrounded by German units everywhere else. So he is out of supply, and we adjudicate this for Allied units at the time that it matters. So here he is out of supply. Let's see, Allied. I guess being out of supply right now doesn't do a whole lot for the unit. So his defensive factor is still a 2. So that is still the case no matter what we do. So it really comes down to how do we want to have these combats handled down here. Now we still have plenty of assets to use for the turn, so we can really make sure that anything we want to have happen will happen. So if we attack here first, it's a 3 unit. He is in what looks to be, I would call that clear terrain in a village. So that would be a +1 strength. An armor shift applies to a clear hex, including hexes with a village but not a town. So he is in a village. So it's just a 3, a 4 defense strength. We would have these 2 armor units attacking. So that would be 14 to 4. So 14 to 4, that's 3 to 1 odds, +1 shift for armor is 4 to 1 odds. And if we put in armor, or the artillery, we would get another, let's see, 18 to 4, that would be 4 to 1 odds. +1 shift is 5 to 1. Well, I think that's a lot better, all things considered. So we'll do that. We'll use our artillery, and we'll roll for 5 to 1 on this die roll. 5 to 1 on a 6 is a defender eliminated. So this guy's actually wholesale eliminated, which is a really great roll for the Axis, and these units will advance after combat. So as it stands right now, they have a really great shot at Bastogne, and they currently don't have any concern about the rivers being blown. So that's a great roll for them. And then an attack here. This would be 12 versus 2 in clear terrain. I mean, it's 6-1 odds no matter what, so we don't need to add anything there. Ooh, we rolled a 1, which is a DR. They can't retreat, so he's simply eliminated. Easy peasy, I guess. And these units go up like so. I could elect them not to advance, and then they can continue to try to roll through here. And that actually seems like the better option, so I'm not going to have them advance after combat. Yeah, that seems to be the better way to go at this point. And then finally, we can conduct an attack on Saint-Vie. This would be 13 combat factors to 3. Now, this is a town, so there is a defender shift. Maybe I should have saved the artillery for this one, but I mean, we opened a door to Bastogne, so maybe it doesn't matter. We have, let's see, this unit is 3. He's not in range of engineers. He does not have artillery support. So he would simply be 3 plus the defender shift to the left for the town itself. If we do throw in our rocket artillery, it would be worth only 1 additional attack factor. So, I mean, any which way we're looking at it, that is maybe 14 to 3, so it doesn't really do anything for us. So really, I guess what that is going to end up being 3-1. So 3-1. I'm sorry, 4-1, right? Because it's 12 to 3 functionally. So 4-1 reduced down to a 3-1, and there's nothing else we can really do to change that, even with rocket artillery. It wouldn't make a difference. So we'll go ahead and roll that 3-1. We rolled a 4, which is a retreat. So I think we don't want to retreat into a Zoc, so we go 1, 2, and these guys will advance after combat into Saint-Vie, which is important for this situation. And he is still going to be in supply via this route, but it is definitely looking harder for him to stay in supply, which will be interesting. So that much is a goodness, and that's really it then for this action. Yeah, all with the Panzer, that all went very well. We performed well there, and we're forcing guys out. We definitely wanted the retreat so that we could get into Saint-Vie, and basically we're just in generally good shape for what needs to happen. Yeah, in good shape. That's a good move. So now we're going to go back to the chit. Now here is where the allied player could opt to do reaction movement, and he is not restricted in what action movement would want to occur. So I think now might be a good time to do reaction movement ultimately. Yeah, I think we will want to do that. So what I think will have happen is, boy, this is gonna be tricky. Oh man, this is tricky stuff. I think what we want to do is have, we'll go ahead and we'll play it. We'll put it on the track. Oh, it's tricky. I think we try to do move 1 here, and then move other here. Again, creating something of a line so that these guys can't simply, you know, head any which way that they want to, that there's something blocking their path, and that's as good as I think it can get given the circumstances. Now, maybe what I should do, actually, now that I think about it, let me let this guy, so you had to retreat. I'm gonna leave that guy there. I think I need to pull this guy back. It just depends on when we're gonna get. So reinforcements are coming in at C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not going to be enough. 1, 2, 3. I think I'm going to need to pull this guy back and have him go 1, 2, 3. Just so that, oh man, this is tricky. Because the reinforcements are going to come in, but a lot of them are going to be far away from the action. The only real one we're going to get is some armor that's going to come in to C, and he'll be able to get up here as well. So we can at least defend Bastogne with something. So actually, maybe we leave him here for now. We'll be able to get somebody into Bastogne. I just don't want to get totally enveloped before it's too late. So I don't know. It's like, do you defend Bastogne? We'll get some reinforcements. We'll get them into Bastogne as well. And then we'll at least have 9 factors in here, which will be hard to remove. So I think I will pull him back. And we'll leave that guy there, and we'll bring that guy down, and then we'll at least have something covering the way a little bit. But that's pretty tough. Really, the Germans have a lot of leeway to operate back here right now. Okay, that's the reaction, and then all that's left is 6th Panzer and the second reinforcements for the Allies, and it doesn't really matter what order this happens in. And we pull the reinforcements. And so, let's see, we've got A3 goes into J. So here, and he's going to move 1, 2. And then we have A4, which is an H. So this guy goes here, and we could do basically 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2. Get this guy plugged in over here, and then the final guy. And just so folks understand, the move I made from H was a combination of road movement and not. Just make sure I can do that. Okay, yeah. So he was, sorry guys, I had to make sure I got the rule right. It is 10.5 in the rules. Entering units may enter treated as if they were motorized if they start on a road. And he did 1, 2, and then off the road he moved one movement into here. So he was able to get 3 movement points into this hex. And then the final thing is we've got this armor unit that comes in C, which is down here or here, but here is going to be more convenient for us. And he's going to have, being motorized, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into Bastogne. So while the Germans have a lot of operating capacity to move through here, we are going to hold Bastogne with armor, at least until we get more reinforcements. So if the Germans try to attack and can't quite make it through here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 steps in here. High combat factors, so the Germans will have a hard time getting high odds. And if they can hold out long enough, we can also get them air supply eventually. So I think this is as good as we're going to be able to get it for the moment, all things considered. So there you go. Not an ideal situation, but it's what they've got to work with. Okay, and then the final chit can be nothing but the 6th Panzer activation, movement in combat. This is going to be pretty straightforward because, again, it is only the armor units that can really attack. 6th being everything up here, so if we're just going to do movement, that movement's going to be, we do maybe a move like this. Let's see. Oh, this guy will have special movement, so we can do that. And then we could do 1, 2, 3. That would be fine to do, doesn't really matter. And these guys could move up like so. The importance of this guy sneaking through here is that it just makes it hard to operate. You know, some of these guys are going to be knocked out of supply if we're lucky. So that's all the movement I can really do. And then it comes down to attacking. Now, we already used our artillery in the 6th Panzer area. Sorry, whoops. Don't mind me, guys. Should zoom in a little bit for this. So we have some armor units up here that it makes sense to try to attack down here, maybe. We also have this guy. He was able to move from Zoc to Zoc due to his special 150th Brigade ability. So he's got that going for him. And then we can have these guys Piper stack with 17 combat factors, either attack over here or not, I guess. Or attack here. I mean, it just depends on how we want to look at it. We could knock some armor out of the way. That's certainly feasible. One thing being this being woods. Doesn't do a whole lot to save this unit. Here would be infantry in woods, and they'd get a shift for it. So as we look at the situation being what it is, and we could get 17 to 3, that's 5 to 1, 17 to 6, that's maybe 3 to 1 with artillery. The other issue is that the engineers here will protect them and give them a shift to the left, and we do have the ability to put artillery in because these units are of the same corps. So this next attack could be very difficult to make headway on So we need to kind of think through whether or not that's going to help anything. If we attacked here with armor, it would be 13 to 4, so 3 to 1. With forest would be 2 to 1. And then ultimately it would be 1 to 1 because of the engineers. So yeah, it's just getting choppy. Really hard to determine where we can make headway here. I think what we'll do is we'll focus an attack here, and we'll be able to make use of this unit as well. So we'll have 20 to 3. 20 to 3. So obviously that's a 6 to 1 odds. Reduced to 5 to 1. Well, let's say the Allies decide to use their artillery, so that's 7. So really it's 20. And well, try to think of the math on this. If we use our artillery, we would have 23 to 7. So that's 3 to 1. And then shifted down is 1 to 1. So because of the engineers and the forest. So 1 to 1 die roll. We rolled a 1. That's not good. It's an AL1. Attacker loses a step. So we're going to have to take, I guess that loses 4 steps. That loses 3 steps. So we'll let Piper take a hit for that. So that failed. Allied artillery is used. All of our other artillery is used. And then it's a question, do we even try over here? It would be 13 to 4. 13 to 4. 3 to 1 odds. 3 to 1 odds, and then you minus 2 shifts for the defending infantry and light woods and the engineers. So it'd be 1 to 1. Also, do we try it? I guess we try it. Well, 1 to 1, we got a 2 is a no effect, so at least we got away with that, and that's it. And ultimately, guys, and though this video is now super duper long because we've walked through all the steps very carefully, and I realize because of the glare of these tokens, you can't see what I'm really doing. I'm attacking units that are 4 strength here, and I was attacking a unit that was 3 strength here. Oh, shoot. My bad. This guy could not have received artillery support because he's the 314th. So what difference would that have made? Dang it. I hate doing this, having to redo it. So it would have been 20. I probably wouldn't have used the rocket artillery, so it would have been 20 to 3. So that would have been 6 to 1 odds to 5 to 1 odds to 4 to 1 odds, and we rolled a 1. So that would be a BL1. So this guy would actually take a step loss because he didn't have artillery, and the die roll was the same. That would have meant, however, that these guys attacked with a 13 to 8, which is 13 to 8. That's 1 to 1. And reduced down to a 1 to 3. We rolled a 2, would have been a step loss. So we would have to take a step loss up here instead. We'll just do that. They still would have used artillery to defend, and that's what we would have gotten. And that unit is capable of receiving artillery support. Okay, so that is it for turn 1, essentially, guys. Yeah, there you go. Sorry that took so long to record, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, there we go. So there we are at the end of turn 1. Now, in terms of general cleanup, you'll The only thing I would probably point out here as we go is that the reaction chits are done. We're not going to use the reaction 3 chits any longer. Some of these markers are going to go away, so let's see. Yeah, so that unit can now get artillery support moving forward. Same with this guy. These guys don't really matter for reaction chits anymore, so these go away. Technically, the engineers can't move yet, so they're still in Elsenborn, so I'll keep a chit on top of the engineers. This bridge no longer matters. This unit is still special because it can traverse the boundary line, and that starts to clean things up quite a bit, and we'll continue looking at these into the next turn, but I'll sort of replace these blue chits with red chits just to show their current turn special rules that are still governing the current turn that we're playing. So there you guys go. Let me see if there's any other cleanup stuff we need to look at. Vonderheit is still there until the end of turn 2. This will be, let's see. It can be removed and reallocated in the next turn, so we can decide later if the allies want to keep that there. And I think that's it for the first turn. I know that took a while, guys, and I'm sorry. You know how it is. Check the victory conditions right now. I do not see much other than 1 victory point for Saint-Vie. So the Germans have 1 victory point at the moment. That is it. Maybe get a few more, but we'll see. And let's see, no sudden victory. We got a victory point. All the assets are reset, and the bridge markers are also reset. So off camera here, I'm just going to flip all of the artillery markers to the appropriate side. Nothing too crazy there. And that's it, guys. So thanks for watching. I feel like my video recording, something has gone on with the lighting where it now looks darker when I'm looking at my phone. So I'm not sure if that is something I did inadvertently or if it's just trying to autocorrect the lighting in here. So let me know what you guys are seeing, if it's still looking okay in terms of lighting. Otherwise, I think that's it. So in the next video, we'll start looking at turn 2. We'll try to make things go a little bit faster. We're going to get past a lot of these special rules that will need less explanation. And you guys have already seen the basic rules for the game, the way die roll shifts are occurring, and yeah, I mean, I think we're good there. Now, technically, there's one other mistake I should have fixed, which was a die roll. This die roll should have been a DR because I forgot about the Piper +1 bonus, but I think we're okay actually with a BL1. Well, actually, no, I guess we couldn't have had a BL1. We're not allowed to turn, so it would have been 1, 2, and then he wouldn't have had a step loss. I can't believe I have to fix this mistake. So many mistakes, guys. And we could have that like so, basically. So it's kind of interesting seeing how that's coming out. Okay, I think that is it. I realize now that there's a huge glare right here. We're going to change up the camera angle moving forward, maybe to something like this, I'm going to have to keep repositioning the camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and apologize. I realize this video may have been poor quality in terms of the camera work. I apologize for that. I will have to do better. But hopefully you guys have a really basic sense of the way the game is flowing. Turn 2 should be more interesting. We'll see the game sort of expand out a little bit more, and we'll be less constrained by special rules. But I think the Germans are off to a pretty decent start. They've sort of created some pressure on the Allies up here. They've sort of blown open the way to proceed west. Okay, I had a bit of an abrupt ending there because my phone battery died. So we were just reaching the end. Holy cow, this is a really long video, guys, coming up on like 2 hours. So sorry for such a long video. You know how it is when I go in depth with all of this. So next video should be a little snappier, a little more quick to get through. The issue I saw on my screen was because my battery was dying and the screen was not as illuminated. So this whole video should look pretty good to you guys. Really, I'm disappointed in the overall quality of me recording this video, so I'm very sorry. It's very long, maybe not as well organized as it should have been. So apologies for that. We'll try to do better here in turn 2 and onward through the game. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Keep gaming.